senior editor at the New American Magazine. Folks, a lot of us have understood that we need to get out of the United Nations for a long time. The 80th birthday of this vile institution is coming up here in just a number of months. But is it enough to just get out of the UN? Now, we've got bills in both houses of Congress now to do precisely that. But our guest today says it's not enough to just get out. The tentacles of this vile institution have now infiltrated every area of our lives, every area of our government, from the federal to the state to the local level. And so she's got an idea to really get the UN out of our lives. I refer, of course, to the great Dr. Rima Laibow. We'll bring her on in just a moment. She has been practicing medicine for 55 years. She's a physician and a psychiatrist, although she does drug-free psychiatry. And one of the first times I ever came across her work was over a decade ago. I'm going to show you the clip in just a minute. She warned that we were going to be facing an engineered pandemic over 15 years ago, actually, and that this engineered pandemic was going to result in forced vaccination masquerading as voluntary vaccination that was part of a sinister plot. And at the time, that was like, funny TV stuff. Oh, look at the conspiracy theorists. And then it happened. We all just lived through it. So I'm going to show you this clip of Dr. Rima, and then we're going to bring her on to talk about how we can really disentangle ourselves from this wicked organization known as the United Nations. But first, check out this clip from Conspiracy Theory 2009. This aired.
You've left the United States of America.
Yes, sir, I have.
Why?
I do not feel safe living in the United
Really?
States.
Do you want to come in and sit down?
No, sir, I'd rather not.
You'd rather just be here so you can make a fast exit if you have
As
to.
soon as you and I finish,
You're out
I'm
here.
leaving the country again. Why? Because in a very short time, not today, not tomorrow, but very soon, we'll be facing compulsory vaccination under the mistaken term of voluntary vaccination.
Now, what is it about these vaccinations? You think that they're bad?
Well, first of all, let's start with the fact that the World Health Organization has decided that we have 90% too many people. The World Health Organization has been working since 1974 on vaccines to create permanent sterility.
Doctor, the response is going to be, you're crazy. How can you say this stuff?
They will induce a pandemic. You're going to get the flu. Everybody around us is going to get the flu. Then the United States government, based on their statements that they've already made, will say, oh my, we have a pandemic. What that means is a Holocaust, a genocidal Holocaust. Men and women will sicken and die, and those who survive will be infertile. Let me tell you a story. In 2003, I had a patient in my drug-free medical practice who was a head of state. And one day she said, it's almost time for the great culling to begin.
The what?
That's what I said. The what? She said the great culling, C-U-L-L-I-N-G, when you thin the herd. I said, what are you talking about? She said, it's almost time for the useless eaters to be culled. And she said, those are the people who are consuming our non-renewable natural resources. I said, who are the people who make this decision?
Few.
She said, we, the aristocrats.
This person you talk to, you're bound because you're a physician and there's the relationship that you can't talk. Is this person a member of the Bilderbergs?
She is not Queen Beatrice. She is not the Queen of England. She is not Henry Kissinger. But she certainly presented herself as a member of that power elite, and she certainly was a head of state.
Dr. Rima Laibow, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into disentangling ourselves from the United Nations, I want to just go back to that for a minute. I mean, you called it. You basically told us what was going to happen. How did you feel when you actually saw it happening?
I cannot describe the degree of sadness in being right on this call that I felt and feel. I cannot describe the degree of frustration that I feel knowing that we had relatively easy ramps for this genocide, and we failed to take them. And frankly, to my mind, the main reason that we failed to take them is that our side, the health freedom side, the freedom side, the human rights side, if you will, call it whatever you like, thinks tactically and acts tactically and follows the shiny object and rarely thinks strategically and seeks the victory for the entire war, not just the immediate battle. So our side is the greatest impediment to our victory. But the answer to your question is, I feel sadness, regret, but now, at this point in history, I feel a degree of hope that I have not yet felt, or I have not felt in decades in this battle.
You know, my dad took the shot. His heart literally stopped the next day. He took the Pfizer shot. We now have the vice president of Pfizer coming out and just released a new interview with Oracle Films where he said we were going to see massive population declines from the shot, whether that be from turbo cancers, from vascular problems, heart problems, blood clots. We talked about infertility. Geert Vandenbosche, who actually worked on Bill Gates' payroll with Gavi on vaccine science, now coming out and forecasting 30 to 40% population decline in the years ahead as a result of this vax in highly vaxxed countries. And so you were right. Not nearly enough people listened, and here we are. Now you are calling. You sent me an email the other day, and I thought, last minute, we've really got to get Dr. Rima on the program to talk about this. So let's start at the beginning. The UN is almost 80 years old. They have clearly nefarious intent, but there are serious efforts now to get us out of the UN, and yet you say that would be a Pyrrhic victory. That would not really free us, liberate us from the UN. Talk about the danger of the UN, and then what you mean by the idea that just getting out is not enough.
The UN, as your audience knows well, is a death machine. It is intended to be the instrument, the operational system to bring about a cataclysmic depopulation and enslavement. And that enslavement, unlike any previous human enslavement, is from the DNA outward through transhumanization, biodigital convergence, merging of man-machine, all that horrifying nonsense. And I will point out that HHS Secretary Kennedy joyfully said his dream is to see us all wearing wearables within 4 years. So if anybody is comforted by the fact that our man on the Hill is going to take care of this, be uncomforted. It's up to us. And what we know is that all of this destruction that we can see, that we have identified as COVID and related, is all UN generated, UN mediated, UN marshaled, and UN modulated. However, that's only the beginning. The UN has the history of UN genocidal intentions goes back to the very beginning of the term eugenics. In the middle of the 19th century, when John D. Rockefeller Sr. said, you know, that's a great idea. Let's do that. And so he, as a visionary, pulled together the minds and the concepts for total conquest of every aspect of society globally, including the biology of humanity, which was designed to be altered, suppressed, and degraded. And that's what we're seeing. They had to wait until they had the science. Now they have a science. But the UN's obvious failings, flaws, and evils that we see through WHO, COVID, all that's the World Holocaust Organization, in my view. That's the tip of 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 the iceberg. That is only the beginning of the destruction and of the control and of the horror that has emanated from this brilliantly conceived, abundantly funded evil. And it is, whether you believe in demonic or satanic or just human evil, whatever it is, it's still patently evil and in fact defines evil for me. So what do I mean by that? Every level of governance has been penetrated, permeated, captured, controlled, and corrupted by one agency or action or so-called treaty, and there are no treaties with the UN. It's not a country. You can't have a treaty with a club. It's a club of countries. Those are invalid, non-legal agreements, but that's a different discussion. You'll have to invite me back. So
Absolutely.
the governance at every level, down to the most fine-grained local governance, and you've written a great deal about this in school and local government, every health system, every transportation system, every economic system, every educational system, every religious system through the tax agency control, every one of them is permeated, riddled, and controlled by the structures of control which are designed to basically destroy humanity in favor of the neo-aristocrats who will reign supreme, Bansai, 10,000 years, world without end. Amen. Unless we, one, and this is the first step, get out of the UN. That has to happen, but that can happen now. We have the disengaging entirely from the United Nations debacle act in both the House and the Senate. This is very, very important. We have a president who can be easily put in a position where, as the neo-populist that he chooses to be seen as, he has no choice but to sign that piece of legislation or issue an executive order without the legislation. So that can happen, withdrawing us completely. And the next step is, after the U.S. gets out of the UN has to be extracted totally from the United States. It is a parasite that has inserted itself into every cell of our political, social, economic, educational, emotional, spiritual being, national being. And the globalists don't care about the name of the organization. The globalists don't care whether you call them socialist or capitalist or Marxist or alien lizard people. They don't care. Or Zionists, call them anything you want. They'll use any name, because what they're interested in is completely controlling the means of production, completely controlling the act of production, and completely controlling the distribution of the product that's been made globally forever. And that's why, in fact, the great captains of industry, Morgan and Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and Carnegie and Rothschild, they bought Marxism. They bought and paid for the Bolshevik Revolution after the Bolsheviks had lost the Russian Revolution. The Kamensky Revolution succeeded. The Bolsheviks didn't do very well. Rockefeller funded Trotsky to go back and refight the Russian Revolution so the Bolsheviks, his boys, could win. The Maoist revolution was paid for by the Rothschild. When you go shopping for a pair of shoes, Alex, if you're looking for galoshes, you don't come home with a pair of high-heeled dancing slippers and say, look what I got galoshes. You buy what you want. The great capitalists, the captains of industry, bought what they wanted. They bought the socialist Marxist revolution. Who paid for Marx and Engels' living expenses while they were writing their seminal works? John D. Rockefeller, Morgan, Perkins, they all funded them. Marx and Engels. They were on the dole by the capitalists, writing the next capitalist succession in their control march. And that's where we are now. So it has nothing to do with Marxism, capitalism. It has to do with utter destruction and control. So if we only get out of the UN, the bad guys, the destructocrats, the controligarchs, will wrap themselves in the bunting and the flags of the neo-populist sovereignty movement, and they'll call it that, and they'll double down and do the same. So that's why I say it's a Pyrrhic victory unless we actually, one, get out of the UN, and two, get the UN out of us, root and stock.
So that's one of the things I really want to talk to you about, because I think for a lot of people, getting out of the UN would be the end of the story. If we're not in the UN, that's it, right? They just sent their special rapporteur on the right to education over here to harangue us about there's not enough federal control and you're not teaching enough LGBT and critical race theory nonsense in your classrooms and all the rest of it. So if we got out of the UN, well, go kick rocks. And yet you point to something very profound, and that is the fact that the UN's influence now extends into everything. And so that seems like almost an impossible task. How do you go through and root out everything that links back to the UN, especially when it comes in under so many different banners? It's sustainability. It's just a voluntary green program. It's just they've got all these different marketing slogans. How do you go through this and rip it all out by the roots so that its influence is not in all of our institutions?
That, of course, is the perfect question, Alex. Happily, the answer is not very hard to construct. I'm glad of that. Because every one of the agencies of the UN, and if you look at the organizational chart, as I know you have, you'll see that there are a vast number of agencies and sub-agencies and so on. Each one of them, and they're a manageable number. Let's say there are 120, perhaps, 150 even. Each one of them has laid out the programs of control and the programs of manipulation that have been inserted into their area of function. So we get some bright young things with AI competence, and we sit them down behind computers, and we say, trace and track the progress of all of the programmatic insertions from this agency. You're just responsible for looking at this agency, and you're responsible for looking at that agency. And if we look, for instance, at HHS. Now, HHS is the second largest agency of the United States government, second only to U.S. Treasury. It is twice the budget and twice the personnel of the U.S. Department of Defense. So it's pretty impactful, one might say. And if we look at HHS, we see that every aspect of HHS, every program, every protocol, every standard, every process, every evaluation system, every single one of them came directly from one UN body or another. So we could look at an agency like HHS, break it down to its component subroutines, if you will, CDC, FDA, etc. And we can simply look at all of their control mechanisms and say, nope, this one has to be reevaluated, this one has to be removed, we have to replace another. This is going to create a lot of employment, by the way, for people who do this sort of thing. I would rather sit home and stick pins in my eyes than actually write the protocols. But there are people who love this kind of thing. The fact is, we have people who are competent, who are able to replace. Let me give you a very clear example. On March 20th, Secretary Kennedy said, oh, looky, the American people now can see what is in their food. Here you go to this website, and we've got this brand new system that tells you what's in your food. Well, first of all, it wasn't a brand new system. March 20th was the latest edition of an old system. What those are the standards for toxins in every food and every ingestible material that are set by Codex Alimentarius. Codex Alimentarius, the food code, is a joint action of WHO and the Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. And they have set standards that make food a weapon against survival. And I happen to have been deeply involved with watching the Codex program and process for many years, and I saw that the United States was the lead force weaponizing food against the survival of humanity by allowing levels of toxins that are so unbelievably inconsistent with health, life, and reproduction in every single standard. So what Kennedy said was, here you go. Americans can see just how much cadmium is in their white rice and just how much arsenic is in their bananas because we've got a list. It would be very easy to say all of the codex standards, and there are thousands and thousands of them, all of the codex standards are now in suspension, and each standard will be evaluated by food scientists who do that sort of thing, who have no conflict of interest, and will be reviewed by biochemists, let's say, or people who have clinical nutritional understanding of just what cadmium does in rice, for example. Now that's a big job, but it's a certainly doable job. So what was presented as an advance, looky, the American people now can see. We've always been able to access that website, by the way. This was just the latest update, so that was deceptive. And none of those standards has anything to do with health, but they all come directly from the UN. And the Codex Alimentarius special report of late 1990s or early 2000s, and I've published this special report and links to it, says that food is being weaponized in order to remove the nutrition so that the population can be reduced by 3.4 billion people by 2021. So it's intentional, and if we don't do something about it, well, what have we done? We've said, you win, globalists, just kill us all.
Yep, that's absolutely essential. I hope everybody who's watching us or hearing us right now will get this information to others. Rima, we are very rapidly running out of time. We've got about 5 minutes left. I know you're not a prophetess. You don't have a crystal ball. You don't pretend like you do, but you know a lot. You've seen how these evildoers operate, and you have a really good sense of what they're up to. What kind of things do you think we should expect to see in the years ahead? Are they going to throw more pandemics at us? Or are we going to have a major world war?
Both. Why not? And they're going to engineer more and more hatred. Can I go back to the thing I was talking about for 1 second, Alex?
Sure, please.
It is up to us. And if you go to preventgenocide2030.org, there are action items there. One of them on the homepage is getting out of the UN. The second one is pounding on Kennedy, HHS Secretary Kennedy, to extract all of the WHO controls from HHS. He can do that. You can do that.
He's been on this show before. I wish he had been on after becoming HHS Secretary, because we would have asked him. When he was here, he said the CIA is overthrowing governments. They've weaponized public health. I mean, he just said all the right things. But I guess it's a little different once you're up in the swamp, huh? Yeah, so thank you for that. And we'll get that back to that website, Prevent Genocide 2030. So what should we expect to see in the coming years?
The opportunity to hate one another and burn down our own communities and other communities.
So what kind of hate specifically? We're going to see more racial division, anti-Semitism?
Anti-Semitism, more divide between the make-believe disadvantaged minorities of people who have alphabets as identities. We're going to see more and more victim behavior by people who have victimized themselves for whatever reason. And we're going to see more and more cries about mental health issues and the fact that we need to treat more and more people, including more and more children, after we damage them severely by insane procedures. Then we get to drug them. That sounds like a plan.
And I mean, this is a tough question, because I know none of us really know the answer, but are you optimistic that humanity will successfully push back and resist this stuff, or, is it grim?
I see that we now have enough outrage and distrust of the destructocrats and the control oligarchs so that people can become mobilized. The issue is, will they become mobilized? Do we become satisfied with just having information so that we are the best informed people ever marched into a gas chamber? Or do we become the people who say, no, I will not comply, and you are finished? That's the choice. And this is the tool. This is the freedom mouse. This is the most powerful force of opposition and control and repair on the planet.
So how do we live our lives knowing all this, Dr. Rima? I mean, this stuff is unpleasant to think about. Nobody wants to think about the fact that there are, in fact, evildoers who hate us and would prefer to see us dead or enslaved. How do we live our lives differently? And we're down to just less than 2 minutes, but how do we implement this in our lives to maybe live in a better way?
Stop being nice. It is necessary to speak at the dinner table, in the coffee shop, in the hospital emergency room when you're having your finger bandaged. It is necessary to speak because you individual people are more credible than Alex Newman, than Rima Laibow, MD. You are the people that the people you encounter trust. And if you choose not to speak the truth, they will not hear the truth from someone that they can see and feel and taste the energy of as you tell them the truth. We have to disengage from the passivity and from the political correctness of not saying what needs to be said.
Yeah, we've been so conditioned. Oh, well, someone's going to think that's controversial, and so talk about football or the weather instead. It's like, no, these things are important. We've got to talk about them, even if people get uncomfortable. Dr. Rima Laibow, where do people find, you mentioned Prevent Genocide 2030, where do people find your work? How do people follow the great stuff you are doing?
I have a Substack called Dr. Rima Truth Reports. Substack.com. That's DRRIMA, Truth Reports. You know how to spell truth. Dr. Rima Truth Reports, Substack. And that's a pretty good place to go. And I have a couple of podcasts that we announce and we post. But PreventGenocide2030.org is a powerful tool, and you can share it with other people and mobilize their action. If you don't take action, you're agreeing to be destroyed.
I agree with you 100%, Dr. Rima. It's not fun to think about, it's not fun to talk about, but it is absolutely essential. If you love your children, if you love your neighbors, if you love the people around you, if you love your own life, you've got to get active. So, folks, check out those resources. Go to thenewamerican.com, go to jbs.org, get involved somehow, whether that just be bringing up tough topics at the dinner table, whether that be going out and getting involved in your community, running for office, going to city council meetings, calling your congressman. I mean, we all need to get involved. And one of the easy things you could do is take this video and send the link to people you know and love and tell them to get involved as well. Send it to your congressman, send it to your state representatives. Get it out there, send it to your neighbors, send it to your family. This is a battle for everything that is good and is important. Dr. Rima Laibow, thank you very much for all of your work. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a great honor and a great pleasure. I hope we can have you back soon to talk about some of the many other issues that you know so much about. But thank you once again for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Alex. You're a joy to talk to because of the wonderful work that you're doing. You are part of the reason I have hope.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that, Dr. Rima. And to you guys out there, I want to thank you for tuning in to Behind the Deep State for the New American. We appreciate you so much, but we ask you not just to hear the information and get mad or get scared. Don't get scared. Get active. Do something with it. You can find a lot more at thenewamerican.com. Use your little freedom mouse to go and get involved in this fight somehow. Until next time, God bless you all.